Hey everyone, so are you on duck egg overload? I am. So a lot of people actually have never had duck eggs, and the only difference between duck eggs and chicken eggs is, well, one, they're bigger, but they have a richer flavor to them. So if you like over easy eggs, you'll really like duck eggs because the yolks are bigger. So they have a richer flavor to them. But the thing with duck eggs is it's very hard to preserve them as far as the traditional methods that you use for like chicken eggs. So chicken eggs, because the chickens, as long as your bedding is clean, they will, your eggs are going to be clean. So you can water glass them, you know, and water glassing is basically, it's a solution that you make, and you can put fresh, clean chicken eggs in there. Now you do not wash them, so like when you get a chicken egg from the hen box, they're clean. Well, as long as you don't wash them, you can store them on your counter, you can store, you know, you can water glass them. You know, of course, there's also the dehydrating and the freezing of eggs, which you can do with duck eggs as well. But as long as you don't wash them, they don't have to go in the refrigerator. Well, that's great with chicken eggs. The problem with duck eggs is duck eggs are usually very dirty. Ducks tend to find the muddiest place they can to lay their egg. It doesn't matter if they have an area with clean bedding and all that, they always find the muddiest area. So like this one is super muddy. Well, you don't want to leave those sitting on your counter. So what do you do with all these duck eggs? If you wash them, you have to put them in the refrigerator. Well, I personally do not have enough room in my refrigerator to store the amount of duck eggs that we get daily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make pasta out of the duck eggs to create a rich pasta. So let me get these washed and we will be right back. Well, the batteries died in my camera, so it wasn't recording and I didn't realize it. I apologize. So let's try this again. So my food processor is over here because my cord is really short. But you're going to put in 2 cups of flour. And then pulse it a little bit. Now you can do this if you don't have a food processor. You can do it on your counter by creating the well and putting the eggs in the middle and doing it that way. But it's 2 cups of flour, and then I use 3 duck eggs because I live in a really dry climate. So if you live in a wetter climate, it might be, you could adjust it to 2 duck eggs and like 1 duck egg yolk. Now I do always crack mine in a separate bowl because I have a drake to make sure that it's not fertilized. If you do have a drake and you come across one that is, as you know, you could probably you can just feed it to your dog. So I always keep a separate bowl just in case. But like I said, I live in a really dry climate, so I do 3 duck eggs with 2 cups of flour. Now if you want salt, you can add salt at this point as well, but I wouldn't add more than like 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you're going to pulse it until it looks like crumbs. And then you'll just dump it on your counter. Now if your dough is super wet, you can always dry it out by putting a little bit of flour on your countertop to stop it from sticking, but mine is not. So you're just going to form it into a ball. Then, once you have it in a ball, you're going to wrap it in plastic wrap or saran wrap. This stuff always sticks to itself and never what you want it to stick to. Okay, so you're going to wrap it up and leave it sitting on your counter for at least 30 minutes, but no more than 2 hours. And then once I have all of this done and I'm ready to actually make the pasta, then I will be back and I will show you how I'm going to do that. And then at the end, I will show you how I'm going to store all of this pasta, or the different ways to store the pasta for long-term storage or later use. Because this is obviously going to be way too much for me to use tonight for one meal. So, because I'm trying to use up all of these duck eggs. So, I'm going to get the rest of this done and we will be back shortly. So, the pasta's been sitting about an hour, but I did do one that was kind of dry because I wanted to show you. Now, if you don't have a pasta machine, you can do the same concept, but you do it with a rolling pin. So if you have one that's super dry and almost crumbly, what you can do if you have a pasta machine, so like this one, I would set it to 1. And let me show you what it does when you roll it out on the 1. Whenever your dough is like really dry, and how to fix it. Okay, so it's like yucky, right? Well, if you have other pasta machines, you can do the exact same thing. You know, you do your first setting. If your dough's dry, then you're basically going to fold it. Run it through the same, number 1 again. But just keep folding and running it through. And it will actually fix the dough for you. So it's still going to be, of course, a little dry, so you wouldn't have to dry it as long. But it will still cook the same, it will still taste the same. Because I've noticed, like whenever I make pasta, a lot of times it will depend on the humidity in my kitchen on how my dough turns out. So like this one came out kind of like odd. So I will just fold it down to where it's like that. And then I'll fold it again. But I just keep doing that. Now if you don't have a pasta machine and you're doing this with, say, a rolling pin, then just keep folding it and rolling it. You could possibly, if it's super, super dry, just put some water on your hands and just kind of like, pat it. You don't want it super wet. And then you're going to roll it out, flip it, roll it out, flip it, and just keep doing that over and over again. And you will actually end up getting the dough consistency that you want. But if you just keep folding it and running it through, so like right now I'm on number 2. And now I can go to 3 because now it's, And if you have a little crease on the back, don't worry about that. When you go to the next size smaller, it'll actually roll it out. And then 4. So like I said, I made this particular one dry to begin with because I thought, everybody's kitchens are so much different. I wanted to show what to do when your dough doesn't quite cooperate with you. especially if you're just making dough for dinner for that night, then what I usually do is I'll take a knife and kind of cut off the end. Sorry for my dog barking. See, and it still runs through, so you still end up with, you know, spaghetti noodles. Now if they stick together, you can just lightly peel them apart. So I'm going to do a lot of different types of pasta today. I'm not going to make you guys suffer through watching me roll all of these out, but there's a couple different ways to dry these. So one of the ways you can dry them is you can take parchment paper, line your counter, and you can just kind of roll them up loosely like that. It's called a bird's nest. But you just roll them up loosely like that, and you can set them on the parchment paper. Now if you do this, have a fan on it, and then you can either freeze them or stick them in Ziploc baggies or an airtight container and put them on your counter. Just make sure that they are out of direct sunlight and out of humidity, because humidity and light and extreme heat are food's enemy. So you can do it that way. If you don't, like I have a container that sits up high, so I don't want these in little bird's nests. So what I'm going to do is I'll lay these out on parchment paper, and I'll just kind of make sure that they're all separated like this, you know, so that they can dry, and then I'll put them in my container. You can also put them in a dehydrator. Now if you do use a dehydrator, you want to make sure you put it on the lowest setting possible, because you're not wanting to cook the pasta. So you want to put it on the lowest setting possible until it's dry, and then you can do it that way. Now if you don't have, say, a lot of counter space, another option is go to like your local dollar store and get a package of hangers that you're going to use just for pasta, and you can hang them on your cabinet doors, your doorknobs, and you'll just, like, say this is the hanger, you'll just drape them over and let them dry. They do take about 12 to 24 hours to dry, depending on how humid or dry your kitchen is, but you'll just put them on the hanger like that. You can do a whole bunch of them, and then just hang them on all your different knobs in your kitchen if you don't have a pasta drying rack, and do it that way. So you can dry them. If you're going to use your oven rack, you know, hanging them over the wires of the oven, do not turn your oven on, just let them dry in there. So you can dry them in the oven without turning it on. You can dry them in the dehydrator. You can wind them up, you know, into a little bird's nest, and you can freeze them. You can also dehydrate them like this in your dehydrator or on your counter. Like I said, if you're going to do it on your counter, make sure you do put a fan on it, because with it being wound up, it does take a little bit time to dry, and it can get sticky in the middle. Now this dough is really dry, so like some of these, you know, they're going to be super wet. Not super wet, but wetter doughs. They're not going to be as dry as this one. I just wanted to kind of show you how to do that if it was a dry dough. But because those are going to be wetter, as you're drying them on parchment paper, make sure you sprinkle them with like some kind of flour. Semolina flour is the best one, but if you don't have that, you can use all-purpose flour, and you just kind of, you know, dust them so that they don't stick together and or get too sticky. And so you can store them in your pantry, you can store them in the freezer. Just, like I said, make sure that they are out of humidity, light, and heat. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this pasta with duck eggs. I had enough, all except for I was short one duck egg to do one more, but that's okay. My doggies will enjoy those ones. But this is called duck egg pasta. It's a very rich pasta. You use it in any recipe just like you would normal spaghetti. You can add salt, or you don't even have to have it in there. It has nothing to do with the preservation of it. But you do want to make sure your noodles are completely dry before you put them in an airtight container. And if you put them in an airtight container, leave them out, just overnight, kind of watch for moisture. Make sure that there's no moisture building up, because that will make them go yucky really fast. So I hope you all enjoyed this. Please remember to like our videos and subscribe to our channel. I do greatly appreciate it. And remember, every day is a new beginning. Stay blessed.